past.
Look into this one. Okay. Just, yeah. Okay, just for everybody. We have the current version always there. You have Linux, Windows, Mac version. You simply decide what you want to download and download this. I think you all know that the license is tied to an email address. So you get an entitlement in your Autodesk account. And as soon as you log in with Eagle, it recognizes the entitlement. We have different editions. So there's the free one. If you download this one, it's the free version. You can use it. You have also to create an account once, and then it works. You don't have to connect to the internet anymore. That's just because we want to know who downloads the version, who uses it. If you use a subscription, we have the standard edition or the professional edition, then yes, it's also tied to the, of course, to the email address, and we have we call it a heartbeat of 30 days. You have to at least log in every 30 days so that we can verify that your entitlement is still valid, and it keeps being a standard or professional edition. If you can't log in, it falls back. Eagle falls back to the freeware. You have still access to your files. You can make manufacturing data or whatever. You can look into it. You can even do some small changes within the limits of the freeware. And as soon as you log in again, the entitlement will be recognized and it will work as it is before. The subscriptions is yes, we have let me check here. Okay. Just join on the website because that's the easiest way. We have a monthly base and we have year 1 or 2 year basis. That's okay. That's the standard edition. That's the prices you pay. The premium is the standard edition is limited in the board size you can do in the area. We have 100 by 160 millimeters. It could be. You could also say I have 200 millimeters by 80 or something like this. So the board area, the 16,000 square millimeters. That's the area you can use. It has to be in the positive area of the coordinates. That's the limitation we have, and that can be pretty annoying. And that's one of the incentives we want to give our customers. They use the professional version, then you don't have such restrictions. And you're limited to 2 layers, to 4 layers. Also you can have top and bottom layer, and you can have 2 inner layers in the board. So that's the limitation there. There's another one in the schematics. You can draw a schematic, which consists of a maximum of 99 sheets. I think that's not a limitation. The big one can do 991 sheets. Okay, I've seen schematics, 70 pages, could happen, but so that's not a real limitation. The limit is in the board design, of course. There's no limit in number of components or something like this. It's really the board area and the number of layers you have. The big one has no limitation, so to say. You could do 4 by 4 meter boards. Nobody could produce this, but so to say unlimited. And 16 single layers. It means top, bottom, and 14 additional inner layers, copper layers. This could be supply layers, copper planes, or you can have signals inside. So let's see some examples later. Okay, that's the standard, and the price of the big one is about that's $510 depending. I don't know what's in pounds, but it's a similar price here. If you pay it buy it in well, I can't say this. If you buy it in Europe, you would pay about 500 euros for 1 year premium edition. And it's you can renew it every year, of course. Or you can also go the other way and say, I have a standard subscription, and if I need it, I take a monthly for a premium version. Some people do this because they say, normally I don't have big things but if I need it, then I can do this. I don't know. So, yeah, you need internet access. As every 30 days, we check if the license is valid. So that's the basics of the editions we have: standard edition, professional edition, and the free version.
The educational version, that's the same as the
Yes.
professional, is it?
Yes, we have also an educational version. So if you're working with universities, then there is the version for free. You know what Les Gomez gives educational version is for free. It's the professional edition. No difference to the commercial one. It's all the same. I think it's if you subscribe for a educational version, it will be working for 3 years. After this time, you have to renew it.
How many seats is that then? Is there a limit on the seats?
It's for you. It's always tied to your account, to your name. So I think in your case, it's the students come. They have to sign up an Autodesk account, and they can use it. That's their own version. So it doesn't matter. You can use it at university. You can use it from at home. If you're on vacation, you can also use it if you want to. So it's tied to your account.
Right, that's interesting.
So accessible from everywhere. You don't have you have to install it on different computers or something. Of course, you have to install it, but the previous versions you have to license on each computer, so you don't have to do it. You simply log in your account, and then you get in time and you can work with it. Okay. Yeah. So basically, I think licensing, that's it, subscription. I see some, especially in Germany, some concerns about the new licensing system. Our people don't like subscription because they say I will never rent something. Then also they do it. Have you bought your car? Did you lease it? Do you have a leasing contract? Do you use a cell phone? In Germany, you always have a contract where you pay monthly for your phone. You pay, let's say, 100 euros for your iPhone, and you have a contract where you pay 30 euros per month for this. So that's, I don't know, times are changing. You will see that all the companies will go to subscription. The permanent licenses, it's not state of the art, it's not up to date, it's not the trend we have at the moment. Everybody goes to subscription. You can say, I don't want it. We have customers to say, I will never change my version 7. We have big customers that said this, and now I see them coming and say, oh, I want to use the new version, and I have to bite into the, I don't know how you say it in English, but I take it and use subscription because I see the new functions inside. So it's really, if somebody says I will never use it, say okay, let's talk in a year. No, I see it. Of course, there's some we have a lot of old customers, long time. Oh, this is the wrong word. Long time customers. They started 20-25 years ago, and of course they probably won't change, but that's not our target at the moment. The customers we want to have are the new ones. They're coming from universities. They're working with mechanics. They're working with electronics. They want to bring this together. And our former or our long-term customers, they were used to do electronic development and nothing else. They didn't take care of what the mechanic guy want to know. They say, that's my design, here you have it, and then do what you want with it. This collaboration we have now, that's something, it's not new, but it's getting more and more important. And you see this, I think, in the universities, you learn, we are sponsoring a lot of Formula student teams, for example. They are in the situation, they must do electronics, they have to cooperate with their mechanics guys, they have to know about, even, I don't know, how to do the documentation, for example, how to how to collect sponsors. So they have really a wide field of action they have to do. and they see the cooperation between all the different areas we have. And that's the future. That's how it works today. So yes, subscription is one point. In the other countries, we don't have. If you go to the US, they're totally open for this. So yeah, I do it, no problem. Okay, there's some, but it's a minority. And the other thing is, what I see in Germany as well, I don't know if it's here the same, I don't think so. If you tell them that's a US company, that's at the moment it's something, I don't know, they'll say, oh yes, very difficult. What about data security, cloud data? Where are the servers hosted? And I say, yeah, they're anywhere in the US. Because on the East Coast and the West Coast we have different data centers. But it's also, I know what Autodesk invests into security of this service. And I'm sure if somebody complains and say, I would never go there, I'm sure that the security of the professionally hosted servers is much better than your own in your company. You need experts to really get them secure. So yeah, that's the problems we had from the beginning, but I see it's getting better. I don't, yeah, as I said, most people are convinced the features that's in Eagle now. And somebody asked me, will go Eagle into Fusion? So there are plans, of course, to offer a consistent environment for a user. They say, okay, I don't know how it really will look like, and if it comes true, I also do not know. But it could be that we have a kind of Fusion, whatever the name will be, Fusion environment, and there you decide, what do I want to do? I want to have mechanics, I want to do, I don't know, thermal analysis, I want to do electronics, and I would like to do some simulation in forces or whatever. And then you pick out the one with this one, and take that one, and that one. If you decide to say, I only want to do electronics, I have my Fusion environment, and I pick out the electronics module, which would be easier, and then you can work with it. So I think this should be, I think the trend is going into a modular system, where I say, okay, today I need some generative design skills or capabilities or whatever, then I take this module and pay for the time I use it, and then I can drop it again. So I think this will be this might be the change that will become. But let's wait for this. There are plans, but I don't know if this comes true. Today Stephen Hooper is here, you can ask him, he will know. Okay, so
can I just ask a brief question about the licensing side of things?
Yes.
We sometimes have a scenario, or we might have a scenario where we have a technician, such as Robert, who most of the time he's doing student-based project work,
Yes.
but occasionally he may need to do a design for an enterprise or commercial research project. What happens with the licensing then?
Good question. That's always the
And that's a very valid scenario.
That's true. So if you are designing for a company, they give you the start and say, do this for me.
Yeah. We may take on a design
And
project
you
that we've
earn
been
money
paid
with it.
for. Yeah.
So you get money for this.
Yeah.
So that's a commercial use. That's
Yeah,
true.
exactly.
So you need a commercial license. The question is, do you have to buy the license, or do they have to buy the license? But you need a license then, that's true. So
I mean,
that's not covered in the educational.
No, sure.
So you need maybe a second account with the commercial version. I think that's so we have accounts. Recently I had also a professor from a university in Germany. He has a student license and he has a professional license in the same account.
Yeah.
That's okay, but he says, and that's true, if I start Eagle then, it will automatically be chosen the student's version. So if you start Eagle and look into the info, it says it's a student's version.
Yeah.
And you can't influence this. So it makes sense to have maybe really a second account for the education, for the professional.
So we should have one for commercial and research.
Yes, I think I would do it
Work
this
and
way.
a separate one, but yeah, no, that makes sense. Yeah.
And even if you would then not think of it and say, okay, I use the students' version for working for them, I think that doesn't matter because you have
You
the
pay the
license.
money.
You have the
Yeah.
license. That no problem. You can also work with free version if you want to, if it's enough for the project.
Yeah.
But you have bought it, and you have a license, and that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
Good.
Okay. So then enough of these links. Let's simply go to Eagle and show you what it can do. Okay, I've installed it. You will get an icon. You see, you can also have a number of versions similar at the same time on your computer. So if you look here, just open this. Go into applications. You see, I have a number of Eagles installed here.
Just a few.
Yes. It's not a problem to use them at the same time, or because some customers say, I have designed something with version 8.1 and my product is certified for this version. Go in avionics, wherever.
Yeah, that's right.
Then you can, of course, keep this version, and if you have to do something in this project you have done, you can use this version. That's not a problem at all. You have to simply have installed it. The entitlement works if it's 9.1 or if it's 8.0. That's not a problem. So doesn't matter. You see here, for instance, old versions 5.12. So that's the old stuff for the legacy users if they want to know something. So that's okay to do. The new one is if you install it and you have an older version installed already, you will be asked now, do you want to keep the settings of the older versions, or do you want to start with a new setting, the default settings? So you can even decide. Okay. So.
What's the name of that settings file? Because I've seen that come up in a window. It says, do you want to overwrite something?
The setting, the name of the file is EagleRC. In the older versions we had, it's EagleRC in all operating systems. In the older versions we had EagleRC.usr, user for Windows.
And that's just recently changed.
Yeah, that's recently changed, yes. Because we also have a change that we also now have all the files that come with Eagle go into the applications directory or in your program directory. And if you want to change something, it goes automatically in My Documents. So if you install a new version and you keep the settings of the older version, you don't have to change paths or something like this, because it automatically goes into the documents again, and you won't lose anything if you decide to delete the old version and simply work with the new one, because that's separated, which it wasn't in the older versions. And it's also, if you want to edit one of the files that come with Eagle, they're all read-only at the moment. So if you want to change it and you want to save it, it tells you you have to save it with another name, another folder, and that's typically in My Documents, Eagle, and then we have the folders, the subfolders where your projects will be. That's also true for user language programs, libraries, and all that stuff. Okay, good. Let's start one of the Eagles. I think the 9.1.3 must be this one. So if it starts, you get the so-called control panel. Okay, that's not what you see normally, because of course, it looks like this. That's the control panel. It's the overview window where you see what Eagle comes with. And here you have your name on the side, and here there is the mechanism to log in and to log off in the account. If you've started with a free version, for example, because you downloaded and tested it, you decide to go to subscription, you buy the subscription, you will get an entitlement. That's an automated process. In the ideal world, it would last about 20 minutes until the entitlement is there. And then usually you have to log out of your account and log in again, and then it will be recognized automatically. This back-end system, which is processing your licenses, I asked around in Autodesk because I'm a curious guy. I have the impression nobody knows what this really doing. So the 20 minutes is, yeah, if you're a lucky guy, then it might be 20 minutes. It could also last 2 hours, 5 hours, or maybe half a day or 1 day. But if you don't get it after a day. But the interesting thing is, it's an automated process. Where come the differences from? What's the problem? I don't know. Okay. Yes. Yeah, the backend systems, they're developed over 30 years. That's something nobody knows. At least I have the impression.
We see similar things with password resets when you forget your password for any company. You submit, I forgot my password. Some of them can be instant, some of them can be 20 minutes an hour.
Yeah.
Same thing.
Maybe, yes. Yeah, that's okay. So if you go, you can also go offline, or you can sign out of your account. I don't want to sign out because I'm just thinking about the password. Normally you get, if you start Eagle first time, you get a login window, you enter your email address, password, and then you're done and you can log. Of course I can go offline, I can also I can switch off the Wi-Fi, I can work for 30 days, that's no problem. If you go to the license information, here we are, you see it's registered. Yeah, for me, and what also is it's a premium license for commercial use, and there we have a next required login. So here you see when you have to log in again if you're not online. I know we have. That's also a problem. If somebody says to you, "I will never have an online connection," then I have to say, then you can't use Eagle. I'm sorry, because you need it every 30 days, and we have some people sitting in a bunker, in a cellar, anywhere in the dungeons, without connections. That's really a problem. They can't use it at the moment. Maybe there will be solutions, but at the moment, no. The problem is that we also work together with Fusion, and Fusion is online. So if you need 3D, you have to go online. Okay? So that's not the expiration date of your entitlement, it's the expiration, the local expiration, so there we want to have you sign in again. Okay. Yes, what to tell you? You all know what Eagle does. We draw schematics, so you have an idea in mind that you want to draw it. We did this years ago on a sheet of paper, electronic symbols, connections and so on. So that's what we're basically doing now in Eagle. Yeah, on the screen on the computer, and from this logical schematic, we go into a board, into a printed circuit board. I think about what's the contour, what's the shape of the board, and I have to place the components, resistors, capacitors, all the stuff. I have to arrange it. That's all things you have to do manually. That's what an electronic engineer has to do, or a board designer has to do. You have to route the connections. So in the schematic, you draw signals between the components. You have a resistor that's connected to a capacitor. So we call it a net to do the connection. If I go into the board, I have to do a trace, a copper line on the board that connects this again. This is something you can do manually. You can use a kind of auto router. We have some functionality, we call it quick route and so on. So that's quite convenient. Let's see, I think later is still tomorrow. Yeah, and then I have my design. In Eagle, you draw in 2D, two-dimensional, just like showing you a preview. If I open the projects, there are some, you have an examples folder and you have a projects folder. That's what comes by default. The examples, that's what is in the Eagle package. You install it on your computer. And if I open one of these, for example, take the Arduino. So just a preview. It looks like this. just for everybody who doesn't know, the red lines, that are my traces, that are the copper lines on the top layer, the blue ones, that's on the bottom layer, on the bottom side of the board. I have in my perfect fitting flight case, that's just board, yeah. Yes, that's what we're designing. If you want to go to mechanics, because you work together with, of course, with some mechanical engineers, then you have 3D models assigned. So you see the components on the board, on the printed circuit board. They're represented here. For example, this one, there are 3 big heads, we call it, and there's a kind of connector. So you have a 3D model of this connector, which is linked to the libraries, and you can create a 3D step model of your board. That's done inside Eagle. We use the Fusion platform, Fusion team for this, and I'll show you all this stuff later. And then you can simply, if you upload it or if you go online, so to say, go 3D, then you get automatically information in Fusion. That was something new. And you can simply click on it and you have it in Fusion. So we use the same data platform. There's no conversion necessary or something like this. And it's also, it works the other way around. If somebody designs something in Fusion, he can create the PCB object. That's the board. With the contour, there could be mounting holes and whatever, cutouts in the board. He can design it. I finish this PCB in Fusion, and I get information in Eagle that there is something changed. I can import this. I can put it into Eagle, the contour, and then I can work with it. Also, no conversion. We use the same data platform. That's the reason why we have to go into the cloud, because we want to work together with Fusion. If somebody doesn't want to do this, you don't need the cloud, except the licensing tracking. So the data you're designing, the board file, the schematic file, and all this stuff, that's all locally on your computer. So no need to go online. Okay. So yes. Okay, that's the projects. That's it's a kind of, we call it preview in Eagle. So I have the projects, folders, and simply start from the beginning. We have libraries. Libraries. So that's predefined components. You know, we have, I don't know. Somebody told we have about 300 million different components, electronic components on the world because it used. I'm not sure if it's 300 or 40, but I think it was 300 million different parts. Of course, we don't have them all in Eagle. Impossible. But we have a selection of the components you might use, and that's in our libraries. And if you go into the Managed Libraries folder, you see a list of library names. That's basically a file which is behind this all, and these libraries are managed. So they come with the Eagle package. You have it on your computer, but we have there is a platform, we call it library.io. You also can access it as soon as you have an Eagle account. You can also log in library.io. Where we provide updates for the libraries. So I show you later. I can look, is there a new version for this or that? Or maybe are there additional libraries available with components I need? Because we don't have everything in Eagle. In contrary, we also will take out a number of libraries with the next release because they're all obsolete parts inside. I think it's about 80 libraries or something. We don't delete them, but we only will have them available on Library.io. So if you decide and say, I need it because I have one of these old components, you simply can download it and use it again. But we want to get rid of all the number of files here. If you scroll down, you see we have, I think, about 300 files with about, I don't know, 50 15, 20,000 devices maybe, and that's too much. No, it's not too much for in whole, but if you, an engineer typically uses how many different components, depending on the projects, 100 different, 200 maybe, and then some special components I need for a new project. So it doesn't make sense to have so much in Eagle itself. If you look into one of these libraries, and you'll see, a designer has to know what is inside. Of course, you see maybe, yeah, I always like to use the 74XX, so that it's a TTL series of components, logic devices. If I open it, you see we have different devices. If I click onto one of these, you see here, that's the symbol, the logic for the schematic. That's the package for it. That's a 3D representation, there's a 3D model linked to it. So here I get the overview. You see that the 7400, for example, has a lot of different versions. They all look the same, but the internal logic is a bit different. And you see some of them have 3D models assigned. That's the surface mount device, an SMD, which is like these guys here are mounted on the surface, no holes inside. Yes, there I have an overview. And if you scroll down, there's a lot of stuff inside, you see, yeah, and that's too much. And of course we have a search function, Geometer, how to find something. And now what's challenging, you have to find the components, and then you have to start your design. So that's basically what we do. I think it's a bit different compared to mechanics, because in mechanics I think most things are really, you don't have libraries in the sense of these electronic components. You always have to design from scratch. So we also have, okay, sure later, components. What you need to know is there are a few libraries you should know. There's one, it's called RCL, with resistors, capacitors, inductors, but something you always need in a design. We have some libraries, linear, we have linear stuff. We have diodes, we have transistors, so there's different transistor libraries. That's also something you want to clean up because there are too many transistor libraries. We have also too many resistor libraries. And yeah, that's you see 30 years development, and everybody added or somebody added something, and then we have something new, and then you can't take out the old one or the previous one because customers are using this, so it stays in the program, and so it's getting more and more, but it doesn't make sense, and we decided to make a kind of cut to push out all the stuff we consider as obsolete or which is obsolete.
Richard, what
Yeah.
standard are the footprints made to?
Pardon?
Are the footprints made to any particular standard?
Yes. In these libraries, it's a bit difficult. All that comes with Eagle, they're developed from different people over the years. But at the moment, we can say that most of the components, there is an IPC standard. And we have now a new tool, it's called Package Creator, which creates the footprints and the 3D model. With the IPC standards. So the standard, what's the name? 17, no?
7351. 7351.
1751. Could be, yeah. Sounds quite good, yes. But I can check it out. But that's always very difficult. We want to follow these standards. But if you go into different companies, then they say, I don't use the standard, because we have a company standard, because we experienced difficulties in manufacturing, in the soldering process, in our soldering process we want to use. So it's very often the case that people don't use all these libraries and they make them by themselves. This also can happen. But basically, yes, they follow an IPC standard, and I think you're good with it for all the normal designs. Of course, there are some exceptions where you, as I said, if you go to Siemens or if you go to Panasonic or if you go to the big companies, they won't use these libraries. They say we have our own standards. There we know that works with our manufacturing processes, and then they're good with it. So it's difficult. It's very difficult to have good libraries. You also can read sometimes the pad shape. They're too big, they're too small, they're too long, they're whatever. They need rounded corners. They don't need rounded corners. We would like to have a different solder stop mask. So that's something. It's individually, but you can configure it, of course. So yeah, okay. Okay, RCL. So a number of libraries here. Let's close this one. So that's for the overview. Then.
When are you intending on bringing this produced library?
Plan.2.
That's
Next week. That will be next week.
Next week? Okay.
Yes. So I think it's planned to release it on Wednesday. I think it's the 27th, maybe
Okay, yeah.
something like this. Where we have some new stuff, including the digital simulation
Okay.
and mixed simulation. That's all in the next release. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So yes. We can also have, if you do a design, I just simply show you a design so that you know what I'm talking about. Here we are. That's done by It's an Arduino. That's the schematic. And of course I have the board to it. It looks like this. Some people would like to reuse their designs or parts of the designs. So that's what we can see here in the control panel again. We call it design blocks. I go to window into the control panel. That's what we see here, design blocks in the examples. They're from different vendors. We have some examples. That's only a schematic, for example. I can simply import into my design if I would like to use this. It could also be a combination schematic and board. So let me check what we have there. No, that's only. Okay, it's the simplest way of a combination. It's a connector jumper, something like this. So I can use board and schematic and import it in the design and reuse it. And I can also pick out a portion of my schematic and the board and can save it as a design block if you want to, and then I can reuse it. So that's also possible. Design rules. Talking about design rules. Okay, these are rules for the layout, for the manufacturing process. You know, the board manufacturer tells you, okay, we can handle copper structures of 150 micrometers. That's the default, the standard we have, to a reasonable price. If you want to have smaller ones, then it's getting more and more expensive. Then you have to adjust your design rules. And just to pick out an example, that's something we also will discuss a little bit later. If you go to Eurocircuits and they open there, you see there is a number of design rules files, depending on the copper thickness, depending on the number of layers, depending on the manufacturing process. So you can pick out one of these files, and then when you design your board, the design rule takes care of these values, and so you can make sure that you don't have what's the correct word? Design rule problems, implications. Yeah, errors. Yeah, design rule errors. So if you would have some, and you send your board or the manufacturing data to the board manufacturer, they say, hey, we can't do it this way. There are two options: change your design or pay more money for it. So that's the default structure is 150 micrometers copper and distance between copper. So that's what you can have. It goes down if you have 125 micrometers. That's a bit more expensive. 100 micrometers. Eurocircuit, I think, offers 90 micrometers in width and distance or clearance. And there are even manufacturers, they can do it smaller, 15 micrometers. I have talked to a guy, they're experimenting with 30 micrometers distance and structure on a printed circuit board. That's crazy, but it's it's so expensive. I think we would never consider to do this. Okay, but just about this, that's something very, very important when you start the design process in EDU for the board. Let's take talk later on. If you have questions, feel free to ask. So, okay, then we have something I want to show you. We have user language programs. That's something, I go into the examples, that's a number of additional small programs. So it has a the user language, it's something you can write small programs, C-like programs. It has a compiler who can run this stuff, and you can access the whole data structure of Eagle. So you can access every component, every object in the schematic, in the board. Every is maybe a bit too much, but nearly everything, or in the library, and can do something with it. Or you can also, where we use it for, we for example used to export DXF data with the user language program, or import a graphic bitmap, for example. If you have a company logo or something like this, then you use a user language program. Meanwhile, there are different ways to do it. It will be more in EDI directly. But you can also imagine if you have this board, for example, this is about, I don't know, 80 components or something like this, and you copied this together from different designs maybe, and you want to have a consistent enumeration of the components there. It should start with resistor 1, 2, 3, 4, and not 7, 17, 4, 29 and so on. What you have to do in EDI would be, you have to click on the first resistor, give him a new name, or maybe give him a temporary name. So you have to click on all the resistors, type in the name, say OK, and then you start and enumerate from then the bottom left corner to upper right corner, increasing numbers. So 80 components, you at least need about 500 clicks to get it done. And this can be automated, for example, with the user language program. There's one, it's called, I don't know, Renumber Schematic or Renumber Board. And the USB does exactly that, what you would do manually. You simply say, okay, do an enumeration, start with R1 from the bottom left to the top right, and then automatically the user language program accesses all the components, renames them, and it's done. It's a matter of 5 seconds, where you have to click 500 times. I don't know what your average click speed is, but it would last much more. And there are a lot of programs that help the customers to do the design efficiently. We have one user language program that was created with Farnell, Farnell Times. They connect to the database in the internet, so you can check, for example, availability of the components. Are they on stock? You really get the live information. They say the warehouse in Leeds, we have 500 components of this. If I order it today, I can have it tomorrow. If they say I don't have it, and you have a time problem, then you maybe will decide to buy another one, or consider your design, reconsider your design, and say, okay, I have to do something else and have to check and change the design. We have companies, they really work under pressure. We have a small company, they're working in automotive. They're based in Ingolstadt, so you know who is working there for. And if they get the design, for example, from their customer, they say, we need, let's say, what's the big automotive exhibition anywhere, we need this and that, and we have exactly 12 days until it has to be worked. It has to work, and that has to be done. And then this clicking into the design link URL and looking, is this component available, it's really matters because you save a lot of time. And they really work because they have to think what do we have to do. They draw the schematic. Okay, they make the board. Then they have it produced. It's not done in an hour. It's a bit more. So you need at least a day until you have it produced. Then you show it your customer or the guy there. They say, okay, that's quite nice, but we have to change this and that. And then you start not from scratch, but you do a redesign. Then you go into the board again. You have to produce it. Of course, you have to order components. You have to populate the board, and so that's a lot of stuff to do. And then you have to build it into the car, and you have to transport the car to the exhibition. So that's all in this 12 days frame. And they told me they very often have such projects that they have to. I wouldn't like to work there because that's too much pressure. Then we have been there. We did a training for them. I don't know, 6, 7, 8, 10 years ago. It was really they were really they were not relaxed. That's something they come on. Show me you. I have to do something. No, but they have a lot of pressure. Sometimes it's really hard to and then there helps. Such ULPs help in saving time. That's something. If you have to do something which is a lot of clicking in the layout or in the schematic on the board or whatever, then search for a ULP. Maybe there's already. You see, we have so it's a big number of ULPs. There, if you click onto one, you get a more or less informative description. What can it do? We have also on the Autodesk website. If you go there and you go to support or learning, there's a heading on top of the page. Then you come to a download area where we also have additional libraries, additional user language programs, additional projects, mostly by customers. But you can look into it. So, okay. Examples, scripts. 10:30. So we can get this started. I mean, it's real quick. Yes, script files. That's something also. Yeah, you know, a script is executing some commands automatically. There's only, I think, one script file you should know. It's the eagle.scr. And if you open it and do a right click onto it and say open, I have a simple text editor here. That's basic settings for the editors. If I start the schematic, I have basic settings in the grid, for example. I'm drawing in, or for the layout. Grid. That's the main purpose, I think. Of course, you can define special values for your commands. You know, we have some menus where I change the diameter of a hole, for example, or I change the width of a trace or of a line or something. Then I can fill this with my own values if I want to. Makes sense if you're working, you know, I use metric units or I use imperial units, then I can maybe have this set in the menus there. So I don't have to type it each time. Makes sense sometimes. Most people don't use it, but we have, that's not true. The long-time customers, they use it because they see the benefit and say, okay, I set it once, I have not to don't have to take care anymore of this.
When are those commands executed? When you first start a new design?
Yes. When I start a new design, when I start a new library, if I go into the package editor, if I go into a new schematic, yes.
Yeah. And then, so for example, if I start a new schematic and all the grid settings are as defined there,
yes.
if I then change the grid settings, do some work, close down the thing next day, start it up again, will the changes that I made be remembered?
Normally it is, usually you're working with a project.
Yeah.
So I create a project and have project file.
Yeah.
So if I start a new schematic or a new board, I get the settings from the Eagle script file.
Yeah.
If I do some changes then, and close the project, close Eagle, Eagle will create an Eagle EPF, Eagle project
Okay,
file.
right, yeah.
And the project files holds the settings
Sure,
of,
yeah.
of the current state.
Okay.
So
So that's
if you
only
do this
read
again,
once.
That's really,
Yeah.
really from scratch.
Yeah,
you start
sure,
a new
okay.
file.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Because I see a little message quite often when I've changed versions, when I've upgraded, it says, do you want to overwrite?
Yeah, the project file.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not very critical, but we test if there are changes in the version number,
Mm.
because in project file there's written it's designed with or created with version 9.1.0,
Yeah,
and now you start 9.1.3,
yeah.
then it tells you, hey, that's a newer version. Would you have to have it
Sure.
written?
Yeah, yeah.
You can say yes in most cases. That, I don't see really reasons why you shouldn't do. But we had a customer, he complained about this very intensely.
Yeah.
And so we said, okay, so if we override this, I think there was a change in the project files,
Yeah,
so that you couldn't come back. But that's some years ago.
yeah.
But not a problem.
No, okay,
So,
that's great, yeah.
and if there would be a problem, you could, in the worst case, take the EPF file, open it in a text editor,
Yeah, sure,
look into
save
it,
it
and then,
elsewhere.
yeah.
Yeah.
So that's not a problem. Okay.
Yeah.
So, script files, camp jobs. Camp jobs is something that we talked about creating schematics and boards. Of course, when you have done your design, you have to create manufacturing data. Again, not necessarily, because a lot of board manufacturers simply take the board file of Eagle, send them the design file, and they make manufacturing data for you. That's quite often the case. But some people say, no, I don't want to use the service, I would like to make my manufacturing data by myself. So the standard format is Gerber and Excel drill data. That's what the manufacturer needs for producing the board. Yes, and there we have camp jobs that automate this process. Where these camp jobs you find here in the section. Look at it. Schematic down. Okay, that's nearly outdated. So that's nearly obsolete because the new camp processor has a different system now. This was changed. It's version 9 or something like this. We have now camp job files in JSON format. I don't know why, but it's the case. The camp processor now supports Gerber X2. That's a newer Gerber format. It's more information in the file for the board manufacturer. So the file tells you that's a 4-layer board. The second layer, that's the ground plane, the layer number, this and that, silk screen and so on. So it's for the board manufacturer, it's easier to recognize what you intend to do and what this will be. So there are a lot of changes, and that's this transition is not finished yet. I know that one of the guys, it's also one of the Steves. He has. There will be some changes in the next releases until the new camp processor is really, in a way, we would like to see it.
I think, Jason, you have struggled with that.
Yeah, I did a X2 CAM files and tried to upload it to a manufacturer. And
That's the reason why we were very proud of the Gerber X2 as default format, but we changed it to extended Gerber, and X2 is an addition. I don't know what the problem is exactly, but that's one of the things we're working on.
Yeah.
Because this was my concern from the beginning when they said, okay, we want to change the CAM processor. Because it's a system, if it's convenient or not, but it's working. And people are used for this, using it for the last 15 years.
Yeah.
And now you come and simply change it. And we say, as a short note, a manual, okay, CAM processor supports Gerber X2. Nice, you can do this and that, that's it. That's too, in German we would say blauäugig, too blue-eyed. No, it's too simple. I can't change it this way. So we go back to X2, but we will keep the JSON file format for the CAM jobs. And we will still already also support, of course, the legacy companies. But I think there will be a cut when if this new system is really working as we or customers expect. Okay, so yes, these are simple files. You see if I click on this, because if I send manufacturing data to the board house, they need a set of files. A layout like this, I have copper on the bottom side. I have copper on the top side. There may be some inner layers, and each of these layers has to be its own Gerber file. So I have to produce a set of Gerber files, and I need silk screen. I have the print on the I need a solder paste for the assembly components for top and for bottom. I may have some cutouts in the board, milling contours, something like this. So I have to create 10, 15, depending on the board, Gerber files, and so we automate this with the CAM shops. I see that's in your reaction. You tell your expression tell me, how can you do such a nonsense? We are an automated world or something like this. That's true. The new CAM processor automatically recognizes which layers do I have. That's the reason why we changed it. And if you load the board file into the CAM processor, it should recognize all the layers and automatically create data. That's something we're working on. We want to have this what's the keyword here? I don't know, design to manufacturing or something like this. This should be one click and then I get the files. That's already possible maybe, but there also is some improvement needed. Because nobody wants to take care of which layer and what do I want here. I need solder stop, silks, and solder paste, milling data, glue there, this, that. That's something the designer don't want to take care of. This should be done automatically, and that's the way. Yeah, we want to go this way. So okay, that's all legacy stuff more or less, but we can't cut it off because people are used to it and want to use it, and they have manufacturing processes. They're working with this, and so that's very difficult for us to cut off things. Okay, SPICE models. Yeah, we can do simulation, electronic SPICE simulation in the schematic. There are some models in this folder that come with Eagle. I think that's something you could talk about. Oh. Who's the expert in simulation here?
We've looked at it,
Yeah.
because in the university we use simulation a reasonable bit in our talk program. We presently use a very old and not much loved program called TINA, and we would very much like to use Eagle for simulation, because then the students just enter a schematic once, whether they want to make a PCB or simulate.
Yeah.
And this summer we did get one of our very good students to see whether this was possible, and it very nearly is. I've got a report which I can send you which details the limitations. I think the main limitation was that the simulation, if you like, isn't live, so you can't get a waveform and vary a resistor value and see the effect as it happens. And that's something that we're used to and something that we really need. Other than that, it's great.
Yeah, we will get some improvements. I think, for example, if you see the plot. Okay, you see the plot in the Eagle. It's going more in direction what you're saying, but I'm not quite sure. But yeah, okay. But if you have some reactions or
I've got
say,
quite a
because that's very
report
interesting for
I
us
can give you.
to see if this is okay what you're thinking of,
Sure.
and where we should improve this. Yeah, very good.
It's a vast improvement of how it was with the LTC SPICE a few years back, which was not great. But so it's come a long way for sure.
Okay. Okay, yes, and then let's come to the last item here. That's the projects, of course. That's the starting point for you to create schematic and board. So that's what we do after our break. And before we go into the break, I have 4 minutes left. How many fingers? Okay. Just a few things about configuration. Most people use it as it is out of the box. No need to change things. But the experts, they like to, of course, to optimize the working environment they have. So just a few things that might be interesting. We have the options menu in the control panel. One thing is directories. So these are the directories. Where are my files located? Where are the libraries? Where are the design rules? Where are my projects? You can change, of course, these, or you can add additional paths. If you have the example projects, we have the user space in My Documents where the projects go to. If you don't want to have that in My Documents because it doesn't make sense that everybody has the same project in My Documents, you would like to have it on a server or something like this where everybody has access to. Then of course I can change the path. You simply click into the projects directory as I did here, for example, go to browse, change the path where you want to have the files, and go there. You see I have a OneDrive for example location. So that's totally flexible, whatever you want to. So that's done here. And the other thing is there's something. It's called backup. We have 2 files. It's schematic and board, basically. We have library files. They are located on your computer. Eagle makes backup files. So each time you save your board, your schematic, your library, the previous version of the library will be stored with a different file extension. Board is BRD, SCH for schematic, LBR for library. So the previous version will be stored with L for library L-1, and the new is LBR. I do some changes, I save it. The old gets from L-1 to 2, LBR goes to L-1, the new version is LBR. So I have as it is said here, I have a maximum number of 9 backup files. In the same folder where the libraries, where the board, where the schematics are. And I have a timely backup file. So there's, I think, every 5 minutes. If you do not save, you do some changes, grab a coffee, 5 minutes later, Eagle will create an automatic backup and save this. So if somebody pulls off the power cord, okay, that's a laptop or something like this, or you have a crash, whatever it is, don't start from scratch. I had seen so many people calling me in my career and telling me, Eagle is the worst program I have. I started a project and then I had a crash or something like this, and now I had to do a 2-day redesign of my project and say, why are you doing this? You're crazy. Now, I had one guy, he said, no, he deleted all the backup files. He don't want to have backup files because they need a lot of space on his disk. That's nonsense. Okay, also, if somebody does this and say, okay, I can't help you, you're an idiot, I'm sorry. No, okay, but we have backup files. You don't see it in Eagle, but you have to take the Windows Explorer, your Finder, whatever you have as the file manager, go into the folder, look what's the latest backup, save it with a new name, with the correct extension, and then load it again, and then it works again. So you have lost maybe, ideally 5 minutes, or maybe, I don't know, a bit more, depending on what happened. But we have backup files. And that's something people don't think of this. I don't know if Fusion, I think if you do something, yes, you have also different versions. You can go back to the latest version or the previous version. And that's what you can do here. We don't show it in this way as Fusion, for example, does. but files are there. We are working with this. There will come a time where we say, okay, you have backups. Do you want to know one of these? Okay, that's important to know. You can also enable file locking. Yes, so this would be something if more people are working on a project or in the same folder, you have all the projects on a server, everybody has access to it. Then you open the file, another guy wants to open the file, and you get a notification that, hey, this file is used by this or that user. What do you want to do? Open it and save it with another name. Ignore this locking. This can also be done. Or simply say, okay, I leave it and don't open it. You get a notification. But we have seen that it sometimes makes problems. So if you experience some maybe problems when if loading a file, we had some crashes, then in most cases the file locking was the problem. I also know that the guy who implemented it, he left the company, but not because of this. He said when he implemented this, he said it's an approach, but it's not a very good one, and that's something. It can work, but if you don't need it, uncheck it, and so that's good. And it's the default setting, so this way. Okay. Yeah, that's it. Basically, user interface. Yeah, there's some settings about user interface. Yeah, let's explain later. And we have some proxy settings. So if you have an environment with a proxy, you can set these values here, including username and password if you need it. It's also encrypted on your hardware, so you can't read the password because that's stored in, I think, in the email file anywhere. It's a simple encryption, so it's not really very secure, but some people need it, and you can also have the credentials needed for your internet connection on your network. Okay. Cool. So that's a bit about all the stuff around Eagle, about the basics. You have seen nothing. I have told you a lot of stuff now. I think we have still coffee. Yes. So let's have a break for this, and then let's go into more pictures and more things where you can see something. Okay? Okay.